Wednesday, October 11th, regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order at 5 p.m. And before we start, I just want to start off by acknowledging the new configuration of our meeting room. You notice things are a little bit different, which accommodates phase one of the new recording equipment. Our government access television coordinator, Pua Ford, has been overseeing a project to upgrade cameras and equipment. You see here tonight several new components, including robotic cameras mounted near the ceiling and the new video switcher box in the back of the room. Phase two will be improved cabling for our sound system. So thank you, Pua, for getting that accomplished. Hopefully you can hear us better, and TV Land can hear us better, especially. So thank you for that. I'll ask now Bob to come up. Item 1, the Woodbridge Board of Education Superintendent Robert Gilbert.
I would just like to echo the great job they do at recording board ed meetings as well. And while we don't have quite the state-of-the-art equipment that you now install here, we're really pleased that you folks do that every month. So thank you very much. And it's great. It's a great service to parents and community members who don't want to come out on a cold night but want to stay in touch with the latest and greatest and see it live, or not see it live, but see the actual footage of that. So thank you for that. I gave to Jerry, and I think she's passing around just our most recent parent update that I send out around every 6 to 7 weeks, give or take, depending upon the time of the year. And so just something for you to have. Not all of you would receive that necessarily, so enjoy that. And I also do want to say that I very much appreciate Beth and Sheila being willing to allow me to also be part of the new newsletter that you are putting out here at the Town Hall. And so I thank you for that. I know the deadline is this Friday, so I plan to get some information to you.
I didn't know that, so thank you.
Okay, well, I'm glad I can tell you when your deadline is.
Thank you.
So thanks for that. And
Sure.
we appreciate, that's another way for us to get news out to the greater community. We get information out to our parents, no problem, but that's very much appreciated. My report's not that long tonight, so I'm sure that'll be disappointing for you, but nevertheless, I don't have a lot of information on the budget side in terms of the current budget. It's very similar to last month. We currently still have our deficit, $338,000. It was $352 last month, so it's down a little bit. And again, the big drivers of that are the health insurance unanticipated costs that we spoke about last time, as well as our special education unanticipated amount as well. Special education is down by a few thousand as well, down to $235 and change from $244. We have made a few little adjustments. I talked about extra pre-K transportation. We've actually been able to hold off on that at this point. We're trying to hold on that, hopefully for the whole year, or for as long as we possibly can. So that was part of the part of our savings, and there's a few other expenses as well. It's a very fluid account, but nevertheless, that's where we are right now in terms of our current budget. I mentioned already that our enrollment from last month is up at 831, and that still remains, obviously, and I anticipate that it'll go up even higher this year during the course of the school year. Our Board of Education subcommittees meet on a monthly basis. We have 4 of them: policy, curriculum, facilities, and finance, and they're hard at work. It's 3 board members are assigned to each of those subcommittees. Our policy subcommittee met yesterday for the 2nd time this year. We're working on a new attendance and truancy policies, as well as some other upcoming ones as well. Our curriculum subcommittee reviewed the summer curriculum work that went on, and has also reviewed various programs such as our world language program, and we'll be looking at the writer's workshop program at our next meeting. Facilities subcommittee will actually be meeting next week on Monday. We'll be taking a tour of the outside of the facility to take a look at just an update as to where we are and what the needs are, and how we plan for that for the future. And our finance subcommittee met last night, and we reviewed a number of things, including obviously our current accounts, as well as looking at and planning for the future. So they're all meeting. I think you all know that we have an ad hoc committee at the current time, the SRO ad hoc committee. They've met many times. We've had many meetings for parents as well as for staff to weigh in on a personal level, face-to-face, on their thoughts. Not many have come to those meetings in person, but we did just put the survey out for all parents and staff, and it closed on Monday night. And so we're meeting again tomorrow night as a group, and we'll be looking at the data from that survey as one piece of information is to help us determine how we're going to make a recommendation to the Board of Ed about future personnel security needs.
Do you have a particular timeline for that, the recommendation?
Yes, that recommendation really ideally needs to happen by mid to late October, because there may be implications for our budget planning, which we're into right now, because we bring our draft budget to the Board Finance Subcommittee in November. So it really is by the end of October, really ideally, because of that impact. And actually, that was one of my comments, was that the ad hoc committee will be making a recommendation to the Board of Ed in the coming week or weeks, so that planning can take place. Our budget planning for next year, which we got into a little bit more last night at our Finance Subcommittee, obviously we did review our capital requests, which we'll be bringing to you in the near future. The capital requests will not be a lot different than what you've seen in the past. Some technology infrastructure, being good stewards of the town's building and grounds in terms of some grounds needs, as well as some kitchen equipment. We also last night at our meeting talked about, which has been done for now many years running, a teacher's early retirement incentive that would benefit the district in many ways. That's an incentive has been around for a number of years, and we plan on discussing that in an executive session on Monday at our board meeting as another tool for our budget planning. We also have our bus contract option that comes due at this point in time. We have an option to continue our bus contract for 2 years. The board will be talking about that as well in executive session this coming Monday night. We're also looking at a few other strategies for our budget planning. I may have mentioned some of these, but I'll just say them again. I've been meeting with a number of superintendents and the ACE's executive director, Tom Danahy, about how do we help each other out with the transportation costs, which can be quite extensive for our outplay students. So we're looking at some models of joint transportation between districts, and it's very complicated, and there's lots of variables, such as, you can't have kids on buses for too long when you're talking about, going between different towns and then getting to a facility, but we're looking at that as one strategy for cost savings. Other cost-saving strategies are, again, looking at how do we partner with the town or with Amity, or look at other outside vendors in terms of the services that we provide. That can be anything from the facilities management to business to technology. We already are in conversations with Amity, again, as I mentioned, I think before, about our facilities management. We have held off on hiring a facilities manager at this point until we can determine how we best go forward in a prudent way. So those are some of the things that we're putting together as we plan for a very, very difficult and challenging budget year. And just to end on a high note, we have some great annual events that are coming up. The Halloween Hoot on October 21st, Truck or Treat on Halloween night, and there's a number of PTO socials that take place on a variety of Friday nights in the building that bring together families around, first grade parents, second grade parents, and kids, and so on and so forth. So those are some of the great things that are continue to go on and that are enjoyed by all. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you at the hoop.
All right, we will. In the dunk tank.
Thank you so
Are you going to go in the
much.
dunk tank?
Yeah. What?
Are you going to be in the dunk tank?
I hope not.
Okay. Yes. Stay away from the back of the
I
building.
kind of go where I'm told, so if I could put in a request to not be, that would be good.
You'd be smart
Maybe.
too.
Thank you. Take care. And now we'll move on to the first selectmen's report. Hope my voice holds out, guys. There are a few big themes that are emerging in my work as first selectman, and I'd like to address how things are coming into focus. First off, our annual budget process has begun at Town Hall and in each of the departments that make up the town budget. I met with department heads at our regular monthly meeting to set out some guidance. I encouraged each of them, along with Tony, to look for any cost savings they might be able to suggest in their own department or in other areas, and also to consider the revenue side of the budget, as well as to see if there are areas where we may be able to bring in additional dollars. We will consider all suggestions. It's critically important that we be able to tell residents we have left no stone unturned in our search for ways to save taxpayer money. As you know, the state budget situation is still unresolved, but we are expecting that funding for education cost sharing, the ECS, will ultimately be reduced, and we'll need to find cost savings to offset this cut. Even in ordinary times, our costs for labor and benefits, which are principally set in collective bargaining agreements, increase slightly year over year. We will work to balance these incremental increases with additional cost savings so we can continue to afford the services that townspeople expect from their government. This will be hard work, and I'm grateful for the team of professionals at all levels of our staff who will put their best efforts into this endeavor, as well as our volunteers serving on boards and commissions, you guys included, who we will also be counting on to contribute to this initiative. As the Board of Selectmen, it will soon be our turn to review the budget and make some decisions, and we'll look back at the overall budget in two parts. The capital budget in November and December, Bob alluded to that, coming soon, and the operating budget in January and February. The specific dates for our budget meetings are included in your packet this evening on the last page of the finance report, and are also posted on the website for the public. Also in your packet tonight, we have included several pages of detail from last year's capital budget, and I encourage each of you to talk with Tony Genovese, who can answer any questions you may have in detail. And he will, of course, be able to would like to hear any suggestions you may have. It actually came up at the Board of Finance meeting that they wanted us to take a look at capital specifically. I wasn't there, I was sick at that point, still sick, but better. So that's why it's in the packet tonight. Another major theme that's emerging is a renewed effort to transform our approach to economic development. Growing the grand list by adding businesses to our commercial district is, of course, crucial to easing budget pressures. And in addition, imagining what we want the future of Woodbridge to look like. It's imperative. This gateway to our town at the border with New Haven and exit 59 interchange with the Wilbur Cross Parkway deserves our attention, especially as the State Department of Department of Transportation, pursues 3 separate road improvement projects in the vicinity. They've stopped in and had a few meetings with us. I'll get to that in a minute. There's a short-term safety-oriented project that will go out to bid in January and begin construction in April 2018, a midterm project to reconfigure the on and off ramps to the parkway, which is still in the planning stages, and the major project to repair the Heroes Tunnel. I met with DOT officials with Tony and Sheila on September 19th to review the short-term traffic safety project details, and Tony and Sheila also took part in a meeting at Scrog with officials from New Haven and Hamden on October 5th to collaborate on efforts to focus the Heroes Tunnel project on the infrastructure improvements that may be possible as part of this federally funded work. That leaves the midterm exit ramp project to be discussed, and I am in the process of scheduling a meeting with DOT officials on that. In all this road work, we will seek opportunities to improve access to our business district while enhancing the experience of this neighborhood for both those who shop and those who live here. Toward that end, I met with 2 representatives from the Connecticut Economic Research Center, also known as CERC, on October 6th to explore ways in which that agency may be able to assist us in focusing our economic development efforts, including the possibility of contracting services for an economic development planner, probably a part-time person, and the creation of a master plan to guide our efforts to attract new businesses. I will share further information as it becomes available. A final major theme that is coming into focus for our town is the need to reinvest in the aging infrastructure. As you know, we have a committee looking at the need for public safety radio system upgrade. I think, Joe, you're on that committee?
Yes, I am.
Yep. And it's important to note that our current communication system had a 12 to 15-year life expectancy when it was installed in 2003. The math tells us that it is time to invest again. That was a simulcast system. Can't believe it's been all that time. The committee will be meeting this week, but I just want to take the time to be sure this is on everyone's radar. No pun intended. We will look to schedule a joint Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance meeting in late October, early November to receive and act on a recommendation from that committee. Actually, I think we're set up to meet Monday at 3. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thanks. The aim here is to increase the coverage and reliability of the system as well as to improve the interoperability between the police, fire, EMS, and we're adding public works. In an emergency, this is obviously a very important project, and I'm looking forward to your involvement and cooperation as we work together to complete this project. Sorry this is so long, but I've been busy. I really have. Finally, I also attended several meetings and community events as your first selectman since our last meeting. I'd like to briefly update you on these. September 15th, Tony and I met with Board of Ed Chairman Margaret Hamilton, Superintendent Bob Gilbert, and Business Manager Al Pulo to keep mutually informed on the Beechers SRO Committee, their budget, current FY and next year FY, and further consolidation of services within the town and with Amity. And Bob alluded to some of that they're already thinking about it, which is a good thing. On September 18th, I met with Chris Dickerson to hear his ideas about additional traffic calming measures on Landon and the vicinity. On September 19th, I met with Rick Bordeaux, a social studies teacher at Amity and in his former career a professional pollster for, among others, J.D. Powers and Associates. We're discussing the possibility that he and a team of teachers, administrators, and students at Amity High School would work with us to design, conduct, and analyze data from a public opinion survey on the topic of the former country club property. We'll have a detailed proposal soon, and I will share that information as soon as I have it. On September 25th, I met with Woodbridge Garden Club President Joanne D'Angelo and Jane Glertner, their Civic Beautification Chair, to discuss the front of Town Hall and Town Center Gateway beautification. Some of it got started already. You might notice we planted grass, and it's getting green already because we finally had rain. And Adam's going to do some more stuff with the hedges and make it look very nice, right? It looks great, Adam, already. Thank you. On September 25th, I met with Sid Holbrook and Jeff Ginsburg to discuss Greater New Haven water pollution control initiatives. On October 5th, we had a meeting of the Animal Shelter Building Committee. Bids have come back and been open for construction services, and the committee is evaluating these bids and options. We'll hear more soon as this project progresses. 2 events on Sunday, September 17th, coming up. Pancake breakfast fundraiser held by Human Services. Wait a minute, this is the old one. Never mind. Sunday on September 17th, I attended a pancake breakfast fundraiser held by Human Services Department to benefit their upcoming Alzheimer's walk. And later that day, a Boy Scout Troop 63 reception for Charlie Whiting. I don't think he's really going to retire. He said he was, but I don't think so. Where I presented him a proclamation to honor his many years of service. The Farm to Table Massaret Farm Luncheon with seniors on September 18th. A ribbon-cutting ceremony for new indoor courts at Oak Lane Tennis Club on October 2nd. And to kick off Fallapalooza, we held a Woodbridge Business After Hours this past week, networking event at Antonio's, and the Woodbridge Road Race and Fun Run on October 7th, and that was really great. And I think that's enough. Anybody have any questions for me? I was unable to make the Fire Commission meeting. I guess pretty much a good part of their meeting was to update the commission on dispatch between police and fire issues, which are continuing, and we're getting there. We're going to do good things. So that's all I have. Thank you for indulging me. Now item 3, the former Country Club of Woodbridge mowing update. Adam Parsons. I'll invite him to come up and give us an update, and hopefully we'll take some action. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for meeting with me many times and coming up and working so hard on this.
No, you're welcome. Okay, well, I've received 2 quotes on mowing the once golf course. One being a rotary mower, which takes about, one day will cut about 3 holes a day. So you have 18 holes, you get just over 5 days to cut it. And that's for about just over $4,000. And then I have a farmer that can mow it. He says he can mow it in 1 day because he moves right along, and that's for $1,000. And then that would be the main areas of the golf course. That means the fairways and parts of the rough, the open areas. He's not going to start weaving in and out of trees. We're going to do that. The Public Works is going to do that with our flail mowers. So to cut down around the trees, around the cart paths that the farmer can't get into. And that's going to happen pretty soon. If you read Bill Moorhead's report, he wants to start mowing right after the 16th of October. So that's going to happen soon. Weather permitting, we get going, you know? Yeah, what's that?
So one's 1,000, one's a little over 4,000.
Right.
Are they both gonna do the same job, like taking away the cut grass?
The
or
rotary,
just
the
cutting?
rotary mower will mulch it up. It just takes a lot of time to do it. So every day that he's there, it's a full day's, you know, work. With a farmer, he's not sure if he was going to pick up the hay, because as time goes on, the hay's kind of wilting, and there's really not much there for him to take. But if he does mow it and he decides to, hey, I'm going to keep it, so he'll, you know, turn it over and bale it and take it. So if we go with the farmer's way and he doesn't bale it, there's going to be some grass left over. Even with the rotary mower, there'll be clumps of grass still left over. But by spring, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You know, the grass is thick. Either way, it's still going to be mowed. You know what I mean? With the farmer's mower, he can get it down to 2 inches, he says. With the rotary mower, you're talking about 5 inches. Because that, even maybe a little bit lower, it depends on how thick some fairways are and some aren't. Some are on, you know, hills and it's dry, so that'll be easier to mow. Some are like the first hole, really wet, and it'll bog the mower down. So there'll be clumps with a rotary, and if the farmer doesn't pick it up, there'll be grass laying there. But that, like I said, by spring, you won't even tell. And even by late in the winter, you won't even tell. It'll just mesh in as the grass starts to grow. You'll never see it. Because there's not much grass there now. Say like in June when farmers like to hay, I mean, the grass was yay high in some spots, and that would have been the ideal time for a farmer to hay it and take it.
Is he able to take it, Alan? I noticed that there was concern over the possibility of the chemicals that they use in the hay not being
I got in
usable.
touch with the DEP, and by no means there's not a stitch of pesticide should be in that grass at all. She won't give me that in writing, but she guarantees there's nothing in there. And I actually looked through the past superintendent's records, and there's really no harsh chemicals that he's used. So on that note, there's nothing at all in that grass. So if he wanted to feed it to animals, it'll be completely fine.
Yeah, Bill Moorhead said it when that he actually found a farm in Massachusetts, where they, right after the golf course was closed.
Yeah, yeah.
They had cows grazing there.
Right.
And it was completely
No problems.
fine, because it's in the soil and it doesn't grow up. Pesticides stay in the soil, so I was surprised, because that was a scary thing for me, but he said it was there. So, anyone have any questions, or?
Yes.
I guess, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just, is it only the mowing? There's no other maintenance associated with it in terms of cleaning up the sides or overgrown bushes, things of that nature?
As to mowing the overgrown bushes, you mean?
Well, not necessarily mowing, but maintaining them, cutting them back, doing something to...
I mean, we can, if there's areas on the perimeter that are overgrown, like say in the first hole, if some of the brush is out in the path, we can have a flail mower cut that back.
I would expect part of the hope would be that people could get out there and actually walk, particularly in the fall, this time of year.
Right.
It's not only beautiful, but it's
With the
a nice time to
with the
walk.
public works mowing it should be, keep in mind, we have been mowing just one swath,
Understand.
right and left. And I've heard maybe we should go into 2 swaths, you know, right and left of the path. But once we mow that, you won't really get much growth, because winter's coming and you
Right.
won't really get much growth. And it should be nice, you know, I mean, it's nicely groomed looking, not like a golf course. It just won't look like that anymore.
And from your understanding and expertise,
Yeah.
the 1,000 versus the 4,000, it seems significant. And is the main reason just the time? It's because
It's
of
the time, yeah.
It's just a matter of the type of mower they're
Yeah.
using.
He has to pay an individual to be there to cut 3 holes in one day. It's a slow process. The mower's 7 feet wide, and you have to drive very slow. It's thick, and if he's cutting down to that height, that's the speed it takes. But with the farmer, he's moving right along. I mean, he looked at it and said to me, "Oh, I'll cut this in one day. My tractor moves." So that being said, I mean, the farmer's the way to go, I think. Unless,
Even if we need them a second day.
the second day. He's hoping he can collect the hay. I mean, that's his incentive. And like I said, he moves right along, you know. So I'm hoping it'll work out, you know, quite
So it
well.
sounds like you'd recommend the farmer versus the the one
I do.
being a lot of money?
I do. I mean, I walked out yesterday. I drove out there and I walked out onto the 18th hole and the 4th hole and other areas. I think he's going to hay it
And
personally.
is he ready to start as soon as we give him the go-ahead?
Yep.
Okay, we have agreement from, we voted last time at our last meeting, Joe and Joe, to up to $4,000 to cover this, and Board of Finance also agreed, I
Up to
believe.
4,000, yeah.
So we're well within that, so we pretty much have the
Right,
go-ahead.
right. I had a difficult time, getting somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
farmers are busy. There's, many of them I call, there's like,
Yeah.
I don't have time for
Yeah,
that.
David and I talked about that yesterday a little bit.
Yeah.
I said that I thought it was tough for you to find folks that had time to do it, so.
If worst comes to worst, if the farmer doesn't do it, Chris will definitely do it. So
Okay.
it'll be mowed. And like I said, keep in mind, the Public Works is going to be doing the outskirts.
Okay.
Keeping some of
You're
the,
gonna do the areas around the clubhouse and
Yep.
clean all that up? It
Yep.
just looks-
the driving range, around some of
Okay.
the trees, on the cedar grove next to the driving range. So it'll look nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the area around the clubhouse, which was a planted garden,
Yep.
which was overgrown with poison ivy. Has
Certainly.
anything been done with that? I haven't been over there.
We went over there once this year and tried to do the best we could to, weed it out and pull it out. And as you know, being a gardener, you pull a weed and 2 weeks later there's a weed back there again. It's just all about labor and time to do it more often. And I just don't have that luxury to do it often.
I think if you get rid of the poison ivy, then there are volunteers who'd be willing to go in there and maintain it. But the poison ivy is a little off-putting.
I was over there, and with my 2 workers that did it, actually 3 workers, I didn't see very much poison ivy around that garden. I mean, there is some in there, but not that much. And my guys, they don't get poison ivy. That's all there is to it. They didn't. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, some get it and some don't, and it's just.
They went into the right line of business, right?
I mean, like I said, there's really not that much there right now. There's bittersweet. There's a lot of bittersweet.
Sure.
I mean, bittersweet's, it's just, you blink your eye and it takes over a shrub instantly. And you pull it, I mean, you literally have to pull the roots out on bittersweet to get rid of it. I mean, if you pull it and snap the root, it's growing right back instantly. So
Or you spray it with an herbicide.
that's the way my recommendation is. Because you don't have to have the labor doing it all the
Right.
time. I mean, and that's what they did in the past, and it's not that toxic. There's argument to that.
Well,
Some
and
people
that break-
don't.
That breaks down fairly quickly, too.
There's arguments to that, but yeah. I mean, it's much easier. Spray it once a year, and end the story. And if there's bittersweet that's growing up in between the shrub, you hand pull it. But that definitely would make our lives much easier, and it would look nicer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it would look great.
So what's the nature of our relationship with this farmer?
I never met him. I don't even know his name.
Now,
That's a question for Adam,
the
I
question
guess.
is more maybe for Jared.
Yep.
I mean, do we have a written proposal? Are we gonna have any kind of agreement? We have a guy on our property. Do we have insurance issues? Do we have indemnification issues?
We always have insurance issues, but I think Tony has concluded that we are covered by anybody that
We are.
authorized, the board of selectmen authorized
Correct.
to do work there.
We are.
Yeah, even a vendor?
Yes.
Yes.
Even a
Yes.
vendor?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's not easy to mow that property. I mean, you have to be supervised. I mean, there's some steep areas that he's very careful.
I know, that's right.
Yeah, I know.
What is the gentleman's name?
Ghazi Brothers
Ghazi?
out of Oxford.
Okay, okay.
So as long as it's authorized by the board, I think we're covered.
Okay,
He carries
The
his-
question is though,
Yeah, go ahead.
suppose, I mean, so I hear it takes a day and he may or may not take the grass.
Right.
And he's hoping to get it done and I
Yeah.
hope it works out and
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
hope
yeah.
going on. So do we have a written proposal? Suppose it takes him 3 days, is it 3,000?
No, he said no.
Period.
He said no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do we have a written proposal in terms of
think
what
we
he's
should
actually
have
Did he
doing?
give us anything in writing? If he
We
did-
have not received,
well,
it's a
we have-
verbal right now. He's so busy that he's like, I don't have time to do that. And it's like kind of on a whim, but he
Is
guarantees,
he
says,
gonna
I
have time to do
guarantee
this
I'll take
before
care of it.
Christmas?
He says, when standing out there on the golf course, he's like, I guarantee I'll get this done. And I'm like,
Does he have a start date for you, or?
it's hopefully right after the 16th. He's
Oh.
gonna do it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he said right after that date, he's ready to go.
okay.
And we don't, like I said, we do not have a written quote.
So we have
Something?
a standard services agreement that we could use for him.
Yeah.
For each of-
And with the other individual, we have a quote from him.
Okay, yeah. It would be good if he gives us a written quote, if he could get him to give us.
I know, I've tried. It's has not been easy with him. I mean, he's just a good old boy, and it's it's basically like his word with him.
Maybe when he shows up on the 16th, we could have it prepared and say, because I understand.
Cheyenne.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hoping,
It's
yeah.
important.
No, I agree. I said to him, I said, you can't have any piece of equipment on this property without
If
having
he
your
shows up
proof
on
of
the
insurance for
16th.
one.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Proof of insurance
I mean, I
and a
don't want it
written
to go too
quote.
long after that, I really,
He says he's gonna bring it, so,
okay.
with his word, I have to trust him right now. And
Okay.
like I said, if that doesn't come, through, there's always that other individual.
Okay.
Maybe we have a date, like a not show up date, like if the guy just.
Yeah, we
23rd.
kinda had a,
23rd.
we made the 23rd a sort of a gentleman's.
We have a
agreement.
deadline. Yep.
It's not done, it's not.
Beth and I talked
in
about
place
it.
by the 23rd.
Then we just,
Goodbye.
Move on.
because we can't fool around.
Right.
So then
No,
we
you
We
just
have
go
to do
with
the motion, I guess, that way, at some point, when
Sure.
we get to that point, that we make sure he's on or before, or however. That's a legal way to word it. Okay.
No, I understand.
Other questions? Questions, anything else? Okay, I didn't draft a motion, so I guess, Joe, would you like to take the motion? You're the lawyer, one of the lawyers. Yeah,
I guess the motion would be,
thank you.
make a motion that we enter into some form of written
Services
agreement
agreement.
with, a services agreement that we have standard approved by council with, Mr. Gazy, is it Gazy or Gazy?
Ed Gazy.
Yeah, Gazy, to perform mowing services at the Country Club of Woodbridge, with a start date of October 16th.
Not November.
And if not, if he doesn't start by October 23rd, then we will abandon him and we will go with the second quote
Vendor.
that we have.
Propose a
that
vendor. Right,
Okay.
I guess that's it. Good.
okay.
Do you
With a,
want-
with
do
a
you wanna put
cost
something
of,
in there about
you wanna
weather?
put the cost in there, or do we need to?
About weather?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, at a cost of $1,000,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an all-in price, that's guaranteed
Mm-hmm.
price, no matter
Yeah.
how many days.
Subject to him also providing a certificate of insurance.
Yes,
Certificate of insurance.
Definitely.
Okay. Good, is that a good
Good,
motion?
yeah.
Okay, I'll
The
second that
mowing is
motion.
fully the fairway, all the fairways and all the holes, and
Every stitch of grass it's gonna be mowed. Everything. I mean, where they sled, I'm not gonna mow that hill. It's just not gonna happen. It's too dangerous. It's just, I don't have the equipment to do that. I mean, the mower that they had, it was low center of gravity, it's 4-wheel drive. And that was a safe machine. The machine that we have to get in that area, I mean, it could flip. So there's gonna be an area, I'm gonna mark it off, that's it, you can't, mow up on this hill.
you or him. You're saying no one's gonna.
No one's gonna.
No one's gonna mow it, not even me. Definitely not. And I worked on that golf course for 5 years. I was the assistant superintendent there. So I know every inch of that facility. I know what to cut, where to cut, how much to cut, so I know where stones are. I know everything about that place. So
Excellent.
there's definitely some tricky areas. So,
Yeah, be safe, everybody be safe.
thank you.
But I'm still glad, that's great. Anybody have anything else? Excuse me.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, and I second it.
And you seconded it?
And then I'm sorry, here we go.
The only thing I'd add is if it rains from the 16th to the 23rd,
Yeah, he said weather permitting, so
Weather
we could put
permitting,
that
okay.
in the.
Definitely weather permitting.
I wouldn't want to
Excuse
put it
me.
in my motion, because
You
I
don't?
would just leave it open
Okay.
myself. If it rains all 4 days, we could consider that, but why don't we have
I
hard dates?
guess weather is a
and-
subjective issue, so you're right.
Yeah, let's just
Yeah,
leave that
okay.
as it is.
Okay.
Would be my preference.
Sorry, guys.
Keep in mind, if it does rain and we can't mow, there's still opportunities to mow that golf course. We can mow actually with an inch of snow on the ground, not on the hill. But that's what a lot of that's what DEP recommends
Right.
in Bill Moorhead, to mow when it's almost like first snow.
Cheapers.
Yeah. So
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm okay.
What?
Thank you. Gotta get out for this call.
You're welcome.
Sorry, guys.
That's it?
Give me 2 seconds.
The footings are in on the shade structure.
Yeah. Also,
Who takes over? Who takes over?
Mika. Oh, dude, yeah. Mika's done. When did that happen? Your first select, who knew this? Your first select.
Sorry. You should have cough into the mic. So sorry, guys. Thank you. I think I'm done. Okay, item 4, receive the 824 review response from Town Plan and Zoning regarding the dog park. And in your packet, did everybody get the minutes as well in your packets? Okay, great. And we had to dig them up because it was brought to my attention, thank you, Mika, that the 824 letter that we received from Plan and Zoning was sort of, it didn't really say how they acted. It just said that they acted upon. So we got a copy of the minutes for everyone, and what it basically says is that the commission discussed the proposed dog park with members of the Chestnut Dog Park Cooperative. Later in the meeting, the commission acted to provide a favorable report to the Board of Selectmen on the proposed dog park. And it was voted 3 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention.
So do we have a favorable report?
That is, I guess, considered, I asked Jerry about
There's
this.
a letter in there from the.
Yep, but it doesn't say that it's favorable.
Yeah, but
or
it
not.
just says the letter just said they acted.
They acted.
Right, and then that's why I asked for the minutes.
It's a favorable report.
Right.
There's a gap in the two documents.
Yeah.
It
I
has
asked the same
not-
thing, and I'm not a lawyer.
But I think you could infer, that you can infer that it was acted upon favorably.
Yeah, I
3-2-1.
think it's clear it was acted upon favorably.
Right.
But what is,
Just
what
out
did
of the
they
letter
add?
didn't say.
What does that mean? As far as they're concerned, we can.
The statute
put
said,
a-
8-24 says that any time a town wants to make any kind of improvements to town-owned property, it must go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. For disapproval, they've approved it, so now the town can move forward with the next step. Even if they disapproved it, there's a provision of the statute for the Board of Selectmen to override that disapproval. But it appears you don't have to do that now because it's been approved.
Yeah, I guess I understand. I guess I would maybe be interested in some details of 1 abstention and 2. I mean, there were 3 in favor and 2 opposed and 1 abstained, so in essence, it was like 3 not
It was
approved.
close.
So I'm just wondering what was in everybody's mind.
I
wasn't
didn't
at
go to the meeting, I don't
but
know.
it'd Be
Did-
interesting
Joe, were
to
you at that
know
meeting?
Yes,
if there were
Yeah,
people.
what was the discussion?
whatever the minutes stated, you know, it was all over the lot.
Doesn't really say anything, just says they discuss, which is fine for minutes, but it doesn't really. Oh, well, either way, it doesn't really inform
These are
us
just
very well,
motions,
other
yeah.
than we know that
But why- I
they
think
narrowly approved it,
I
but.
think they have a tape. If you wanted to watch the tape, you
Yeah.
probably can watch the tape.
Okay.
Ultimately, to Joe's point though, with I think I'm kind of in agreement with them, just in the sense that at some point in time, the information and the reasons behind some of what happened becomes important to
I
understand.
think so.
And,
Yeah. If we're gonna send it, then we should kind of know what they were
Kinda,
thinking
yeah.
of, yeah, you know.
Yeah. Could we ask them for something for?
Particularly since it wasn't like
think
a
the
slam
best thing
dunk.
to do is
unanimous,
everybody
you know.
unanimous.
To look at the tape, and then you'd have the whole hearing. I don't know how long it took, but that's the way.
Long time.
To have somebody's recollection is probably not as good as actually seeing what the tape says.
So how do we make that tape available?
Could be available here, anybody
We
who
could
wants
get it here, could we
Yeah.
ask for a copy of it and have it here and everybody could come in and just see it?
Sure,
Okay,
we've done that in the
we'll have
past.
it here and anyone who wants to come, we'll
Yeah, that's
get a
good.
copy.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, all right, even easier, wow.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can get it right here, right now, if you want.
Maybe that'll give us a better, we can talk about it further if you want to continue it next month.
Yeah, well, you're not gonna make any decision on the dog park tonight
Right,
anyway.
not tonight,
But
so,
know that you
right.
have
Right.
their approval, and if you see things in their approval that that makes you think that maybe you shouldn't go forward, then you don't go forward.
Right.
That's fine.
I think they're going back to QPOP next,
It probably is going to QPOP.
They're
yes.
meeting on
next Monday.
next Monday.
Yeah.
It's with them also at this point, Coopop.
Cause we sent it there?
Yes, we did last
Yeah.
We
month,
sent
when
it,
you weren't
yes.
here, sorry.
I was just gonna say, cause
I know.
there's no charter or statutory provision for that, so.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5, Town Council's report. Item A, update regarding proposed dog park.
So
Good segue.
just coincidentally, we're talking about, and basically the last meeting, there was some talk about the liability of the town in doing this, and I did a little bit of research on it, and Tony, and most importantly, Tony has called our insurance company, and there is coverage. I'll ask
Yeah.
Tony the report.
Certainly, there is coverage, and there's no additional premium for it. As with any activity, which Jerry will get into, there's increased liability risk with any activity you do. And this is included, I did get some best practices and some standards and some design recommendations and other things that could help minimize risk at the dog park that I think we should take a good look at and institute if it makes sense for us. So we can help minimize that risk.
And there are two Connecticut statutes that govern this to some extent, and that one is, Connecticut has a dog bite statute, which is a strict liability statute, which means that an owner of a dog is strictly responsible for any damage that his or her dog causes to another person or another animal. Any bite, regardless of who's at fault or what the history of the dog is, the owner bears the responsibility. So anybody that's using the dog park will have to does it with that assumption that if the dog gets unruly, they are going to be ultimately responsible. And it's not the town's responsibility if a dog bites somebody, for example. The second statute that's relevant to this is that we have a statute in Connecticut that says that whenever any recreational use is provided by an owner of property, including the town, and there is no charge for that recreational opportunity, then the town is immune from any liability for any kind of incidents that happen at the property, if so long as everybody is doing the use that it was intended for, and the town is immune from liability as long as we don't charge, which I understand we're not going to charge. As Tony said, the only way to guarantee that the town doesn't have any excess liability is not to do it, not to do any other activities. Of course, somebody, even though we have two statutes which favor the town and protect the town, our insurance company says we're covered. There's always a possibility that something could happen and the town could be involved in a lawsuit. But it looks like there is enough coverage with our insurance company and Connecticut statutes that will protect the town if there is an incident. So that's the basis.
And we have some smart things we can do that help protect against some incidents that have happened in other dog parks that you sort of try to safeguard against.
Okay.
One other important relevant part of this is that the property that the proponents of the dog park want to use is the Fitzgerald property, which is, and the section of the Fitzgerald property is the Chestnut little orchard that we have there. And people should know that there is an agreement that was signed by the town and the Woodbridge Land Trust in 2005 that governs the use of that Chestnut parcel. The town set aside 3 acres for this chestnut experiment, I think, what chestnut tree experiment. In fact, they're only using 1.5 acres. There's only 1.5 acres that's fenced in. And the agreement was concurrent with a signed agreement with an organization called the American Chestnut Foundation Germplasm Agreement. It was an experiment, it's sort of, and I don't know the technical stuff, but it was an experiment to get some hybrid chestnut trees developed. It failed for the most part because most of the trees became infected and I think most of them were cut down, so there's still about 10 trees up there. But the agreement with the land trust provides and requires the town, if we wanted to end this agreement, unless it is waived and ended by agreement with the land trust, the town needs to give 6 months notice to the land trust indicating that we're going to terminate the agreement. So if the land trust wants to hold the town to this agreement, nothing can really be done out there until 6 months go by after we've given them the notice. Now, Sheila is actually in the process of making contact with the land trust to informally find out what their position would be, also how they feel about the agreement. And that has to be, all the loose ends have to be cleared up before we really go forward. And we got to determine whether we need to give the 6 months notice to terminate the agreement. on that, I think that's my report for now. There's a lot more to talk about, but that's basically where we are.
Just kind of an update on where we are.
Just-
because we're not gonna, make any further decisions this evening, but I don't think. And that, maybe Tony could get that stuff you've
Information.
got, get a copies to all of us.
Sure.
Some of
If
that
you'd like to
best
see it, sure.
practices stuff and
Yep.
get it out to all the selectmen, gives us something to have.
So if we decide at some point to go ahead with a dog park, do we need to terminate that agreement
Yes.
before we do? Okay.
So, there's a group, I wasn't here last month, but from what I've seen, there's a group of folks proposing this dog park and proposing that specific location. Are there any other locations that would be options, or?
No one has talked, I don't think anyone talked to us about other
No.
locations.
But I mean, from our
I
standpoint,
haven't
if
heard
we
of
wanted
any
to say,
other-
hey, we like the idea, but maybe there's
Right.
other locations.
I haven't heard anything, from
Actually,
anyone.
so when they
Oh.
came to QPOP, I was at the first meeting that they came to as the liaison, and they looked at some other places in town, but the person who I believe was responsible for running that Chestnut project,
For the
Dr.
barn.
Arnold?
yes,
Yeah.
sent them a letter saying that they have a letter from them giving it their blessing to use that because currently people walk their dogs around the park there. And there's already waste stations. So there's receptacles for the waste and bags, from what I remember, for the waste. So it made it a logical place since it was already being maintained.
You wrote a letter to the land
fence.
trust, right?
And it's fenced in.
They wrote a letter, I believe, to the person, Bonnie Blake, I think.
Oh, okay,
She's
okay.
here.
I have some information if it's not appropriate. Give me a call.
Can I call on her now?
We usually don't, but I don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come up?
I think so, yep. Sorry.
It's okay. I just don't, if I could clarify something. It's Bonnie Blake, Beecher Road, Woodbridge. So, from Dr. Arnold's perspective, it wasn't a total failure. What they purposely, the chestnut trees are dying in the Northeast because of a blight, so they purposely infected some of them to see if they could then make them survive. So some did survive, and he is actively harvesting the burrs that come out of that. When he suggested that it might be used for a dog park, it was a community gesture of welcome. He had no intention of ending the project. His feeling is that they can work coexist, that a dog park would not damage the continuing harvesting. Running dogs won't do, and there's one period in October when the burrs land, and they're, I call them pods, they're about this big and they're prickly. And instead of being worried about the pods, he said, well, I wouldn't want a dog's paws to get hurt on them. So you have that one period of the year where it might not be appropriate for the dogs to run in that one end. Otherwise, he said, the dogs won't do anything damage. And he said, how nice to have a dual purpose. So the people, the proponents of the dog park are really excited because maintaining the agricultural use as well as the dog park would be phenomenal. And he actually said he would continue mowing it. And
He mows that entire Fitzgerald anyway, doesn't he?
I mean, the guy's in his
Does he have that
70s and
lease?
he's mowing.
He doesn't?
No, just within,
Oh,
But he's been he's like at 70s, he's a doctor, he's in his 70s, but he goes in there, opens the gate, mows,
Wow.
and he says he hasn't been trimming as much lately because he says, I'm older, and I said, well, that's something we could help you with. So yeah, the reason why we actually stayed with the chestnut tree enclosure was in large part because that was the direction we were sent also with the town. This has come available, why don't we look at this first? So it's not that we excluded other areas at all. It's that this became available, it's fenced in. That fence cost $8,300 in 2006. That's the strongest, best fence you can have. It's meant to keep out large animals. The reason for having it reinforced is the squares are, I don't know, maybe 5-inch. So a small head could get through. So you would go up 5 feet from the bottom with a smaller gauge wire and just attach it to the existing pressure treated posts without in any way damaging the strength. And that way the small dogs can get out, and then you would add the things, and I'm sure, Tony, some of these are on that list, a double gate, airlock foyer, so that dogs can be leashed and unleashed, and then separating an area, maybe 20% of the whole area for small, timid, older dogs that don't want to run around. And so when you come into the foyer, you have a separate gate into the larger and the smaller enclosure. And all of that can be done without interfering with Dr. Arnold's work, and also would be within the existing enclosure, so would not disrupt any other things with Fitzgerald. So that was it. Anything?
Thank you for that update. Okay, any other questions regarding dog park, Jerry or anybody? Go ahead.
Did we pay for the town pay for the fence?
No.
No.
Land trust.
The land trust, okay.
Yep. So the next thing I have is the discussion about a tax appeal, and I would ask that
I make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Section 1-210B4 to discuss tax appeal litigation for 5 Lois Drive.
Inviting in
Jerry and that's Tony.
Tony, yes.
And
Okay.
Tony.
Okay,
Second?
I'll second it. Sorry, all in favor? Aye. Okay.